All right, Shalom. Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Ruach Kodash. I'd also like to give double honors to my elders and apostles at Great Millstone that do well. And I would like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elected and 1/3. And Lord's will, this lesson will be edifying and exhorting to the sincere sheep of Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushai, Baha, Ruach Kodash. All right, and Tawadi Abashim Shai, forgive me the inspiration to do this lesson. And as the title reads, Christians don't like to isolate the nations. All right, and just had a few points that I wanted to bring out pertaining to a few scriptures and a conversation I was having with a brother last night, because there is a and it's scriptural. Okay, it's in the scriptures, but there is but they don't understand the breakdown. Okay, but in the scriptures, there's many times where the Bible is referring to nations, referring to the inhabitants of the earth, even referring to all nations. Okay, but one thing that I noticed is, because the Bible is all about nationalities, but one thing I noticed is Christians don't like to isolate in particular nations, because in one breath you can say all nations, but then when we start specifically speaking about these nations as individuals, that's where the problem lies. And matter of fact, they have a problem with they have a problem with you setting someone apart from everyone else, and that's that Tower of Babel spirit. Okay, that's that spirit that they had back in Genesis, where they wanted to be all one, and the Lord had a problem with that. Okay, Yahweh Shemashah had a problem with that. Now, real quick, I want to share this video. I'm going to show this video. I was, I just put all nations on YouTube. Okay, so I just put all nations can be saved. Okay, and this is what popped up. So I'm going to play this one real quick, and then I'm also going to make some points. Matter of fact, let me see if I can even just play it from right from here. Let's see.
More than likely, we are. But it's also the Gentiles as well.
So how can you get Romans 9 and 4? Look at Romans chapter 9, verse 4. Who is the covenants for?
The old covenant?
The new covenant.
The new covenant is open to everybody.
Everybody. Get it? Read this. Romans 9 and 4. This is Romans chapter 9, verse 4. Or Israelites. Who? Israelites. Israelites. Go ahead. It says, to whom pertaineth the adoption. The adoption. And the glory. And the glory. It says, and the covenants. Plural covenants. And the giving of the law. And the service of God. And the promises. So I'm asking you again, who are the promises and covenants for?
Now, that's out of the context.
I'm asking you. Paul said all that's for Israelites.
Yeah, well, that was a figure, a pattern, or a parable to explain.
What church are you at?
Exactly. So I'm going to stop right there. See, that's my point. Okay. Once you start delving into in particular nations that are amongst all nations, that's where the problem lies. And that's one thing that I noticed with Christianity is they have no problem saying all nations, but then when you start specifically naming nations that have in particular rights, now it's out of context. So I find it funny that in the same breath you can say all nations, but then when you start saying, well, let's talk about the Latino nation, let's speak about the African American nation, or hey, can we talk about the Native American nation? And then there's this broad stroke of all nations. And then when you start to isolate, all right, when you start to isolate in particular blessings for certain nations, that's what they have a problem with. And let's look this word up, isolate, okay, because I had put that in the thing. So real quick, isolate. All right, we're going to hold this. Okay, so right here, isolate means cause a person or place to remain alone or apart from others. They do not want us to be isolated, all right, as a nation for blessings, okay? They don't like to isolate in particular nation, even though it says all nations, all right? Like right here, this is Matthew 28 and 18. It says, and Yahushai came and spake unto them, saying, all power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and teach all nations. Now, right here, Yahushua is telling us to go teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father. So in context, we know that this doesn't mean that we're going to be baptizing everybody in every nation. No, it's going to be the Israelites that identify as these other nations, and them being of the elect will be baptized by the name of Yahweh Bashem Shai and the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, because they are predestinated. See, that's one thing that Christians can't wrap their head around, is the fact that Israelites will be identified as every single nation on the planet. But my point is, now let's get Romans 1. My point is, Isaiah 1. But my point is, they don't want to talk about those specific things, because they'll say all nations. Then we say, okay, well, let's pinpoint it. Let's talk about the African-American nation. Let's talk about them. Is there parts in the Bible that sounds like their history? They don't want to address that. Or then let's talk about so-called white people. Is there characteristics found in the Bible with a biblical character by the name of Esau? They don't want to talk about that, but they have no problem talking about all nations can be saved. But then when you start isolating nations and showing characteristics or blessings or things that fit these nations today, that's where the silence comes out, or it's out of context. See, this is why you really don't want to have a conversation with Christians, because it's not going to be beneficial. It's not going to be fruitful. But these are the things that we are noticing in the last days when it comes to these people that, quote unquote, have had a leg up and a head start in the race when it comes to the scriptures. Okay, we've gotten the Bible last. Everybody has had the Bible. Everybody has had an opportunity to hold the Bible, bear the Bible, teach the Bible. And we see the fruit that has come from that. But now when we get our hands on the Bible, all right, meaning Hebrew Israelites, all right, starting with our elders and our apostles, when we get our hands on the Bible and we start breaking it down, now it's just out of context, but you've never even delved into these topics or the context of these scriptures. See, now the Bible tells us that Israel doesn't even know who they are. Isaiah 1:3, the ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib, but Israel does not know. My people does not consider what? That they have a heritage, that they're found in the scriptures. This is why Yahushua made the statement of go teach all nations, because he has his people in the midst of all nations, and they will come out of these nations because the Spirit will draw them. Okay, the Spirit's going to draw them. So there's no problem with saying all nations can be saved as long as you qualify that statement. And I do find it very edifying to address these scriptures so no one can try to loophole you or put you in a corner and say, wait a minute, but Jesus said all nations. And this is why I like to say that. Yes, all nations can be saved if they are Israelites, because you have Israelites in the midst of all nations. But then when you start isolating, okay, nations, that's where Christians have the problem with. But right here, we find out that even Israel don't know who they are. So what are they going to be calling themselves? They're going to be calling themselves they're going to call themselves the nations that they are scattered in. It's very simple. It's very simple. Now, I want to keep going with this. So I put all nations. Here's a question. Can all nations be saved? Elder Yashwarma did a video about a month ago. Now check this out. Right here. IUIC says salvation is not for all nations. Now that's true. But in the same sense, these statements, when you make them, there's a lot of qualifying. So the best cut is to say, yes, all nations can be saved because Israel is in the midst of all nations. This is why Yahushua said, going back, okay, teach all nations and baptize them in the name of the Father. So you have to qualify those statements, because there's scriptures that says opposite, okay? Even though there's scriptures say salvation's for Israel, absolutely, but there's other scriptures that says go and teach the world. They came out of all kindreds, nations, and tongues. So there's scriptures that Christians use that think that because it says that, that means anybody from any nation. What they fail to realize is, yes, anybody of any nation, as long as their line goes back to Israel. You can identify today as French. But as long as your line, all right, which is spiritual, at the end of the day, it's your spirit. As long as your line goes back to Jacob, Isaac, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, salvation is for you. But we're not going to tell you that salvation isn't for you just because you're German or just because you're French or Sudanese. See, that's the point of these lessons in these last days, because the gospel is spreading. The gospel is spreading. This is why Paul made these statements, and Christians today think it's anybody. This is why we're telling you, even though it's a broad brush, the broad brush is being spread so that those that are in the midst can be pulled with it, be pulled out of it. Okay. So we have to understand that moving forward when it comes to teaching the gospel, that you have to embrace these scriptures, go and teach all nations, because we understand what it means, why it says all nations. It says, go ye therefore and teach all nations. And then when we say that because Israel's amongst all nations, can we give you some scriptures? No. They don't want to talk about that. See, they don't want to pinpoint. They don't want to isolate. They don't want you to isolate the broad brush. And it says, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I've commanded you. Right. And we're teaching you how to serve Yahweh Bashim Shai the correct way, teaching you the doctrine. And then that's another thing. If you claim salvations for everyone, well, you don't adhere to the truth that we're bearing. See? So that's another thing too. We're telling everybody the gospel, the good news, because the gospel is like a net and it's going to pull you in. All right. If it's set up to, and then we're going to see if you can bear the gospel. You have even Israelites that can't even receive the good news because they're stiff-necked. They can't receive the Holy Spirit. It says, whatsoever things I've commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. And where are we at? We're in another nation. That's in the end of the world. Okay. We're in the end of the world, right? All the way here in Babylon. Okay. You have Israelites scattered in Babylon, identifying as Babylonians. So are you going to say that the gospel can't be preached to the Babylonians? Well, we're here. The gospel has to come, the gospel had to come here so that we could receive the good news. See, this is why you go to all nations, because there are Israelites potentially in every single nation. There is, but I'm saying it in that hypothetical sense, but you have Israel in every nation. So you say, hey, to the Romans, matter of fact, let's go to that. Good example. Let's go to Romans 1. This is why when he wrote to Rome, who's in Rome? Esau, but you had Jake. All right, look. Let's start at 1. It says, Paul, a servant of Yahushua Mashiach, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of the Most High, which he had promised afore by his prophets in the Holy Scriptures, concerning his son Yahushua, Hamashiach our Lord, which was made of the seed, sperma of David, according to the flesh, right? Meaning he actually came in the flesh. Christians don't believe that. Oh, Yahushua is actually a Hebrew Israelite by birth. Christians don't acknowledge that. See how they don't isolate things? It's just a broad brush. No, we isolate. Even though there's a broad brush, we still going to isolate so you understand. It says, just like, great example, the broad brush of the rights in 1776, I declare all men free and liberty and justice. But guess what? They still had slaves. They said all men were to be free, but what men were they talking about? Okay. Well, they said all men could be free. Did they not? 1776, all men are free, right? Declaration of Independence, 1776, all men are created equal, okay? And unalienable, all men are created equal. Now let's put this in. So they declared this, okay? And that's a statute to this day. 1776, there were still slaves. Let's see. The legal institution of human chattel slavery, comprising the enslavement primarily of Africans and African Americans, was prevalent in the United States of America from its founding in 1776. So right there, in the same breath, when you say all men are free, and yeah, that's right, all men are free, but then you still had people in slavery. So when you say all, does that literally mean all of them? No, there's specifics. See? There's specifics. So it's the same notion when it says all nation, but what of all nations? See? So, these are just good points to prove to show you the semantics that ultimately a Christian will play with you. And we have no problem speaking about all nations, not at all, because we understand that the gospel is being shed to all nations because Israel is in the midst of all nations. So yes, we will say all nations can be saved if they are an Israelite, because a nation is just a title that you're identifying yourself in a country or a land that you are inhabited of. That's all it is. Like right now, I'm technically what? An African American. I'm American. So now is the gospel for the Americans? Yes. But what first? The Latino Americans, the Native Americans, the African Americans, and those scattered abroad according to the diaspora that may not look like them, but their spirit bears witness with our spirit because they are the children of Yahweh Bashem El Shai. It's that simple. But they don't like to isolate those things. All nations, well, let's talk about the African American nation. No. Well, let's talk about the Latino nation. No. Let's talk about the West Indies. No. Let's talk about the Mexicans. No. But you just said all nations. So why is it a problem if we're identifying out of all nations, in particular nations, with their characteristics that's found in the Bible with the nation of Israel? Why is that a problem? You say all nations, but then when we pinpoint nations, that's where the problem lies. Kind of sounds like racism. Not saying that's bad, but it kind of sounds like that because you're not going biblically with your standpoint. And it says, and declared to be the son of Yahweh with, it says, with power according to the spirit of holiness by the resurrection from the dead, by whom we have received grace and apostleship, right? We've received grace and apostleship being sent forth unto all nations to gather the dispersed among all nations for obedience to the faith among all nations. See, among all nations for his name. So we go amongst all nations to preach the gospel. And guess what? All nations don't like the gospel that we bear. Okay. Esau don't like the gospel that we bear. Now, if someone comes up that looks like an Edomite and they cleave to it, that's because, hey, they're probably an Israelite. Okay. And it says, for his name, among whom are ye also called of Yahushua Mashiach, to all that be in Rome. Wait a minute. See, to all that be in Rome, beloved of the Most High, called to be saints. Now we know, was that Psalms? Psalms was at 55. Let me check this out. It says saints, right? Let's put saints in. Let's put saints in. Who is a saint according to the Bible? A saint according to the Bible is only the Israelites. Okay? Look at that. Saints, right? Let thy priests and let thy saints, see who are the priests? Levi, Israelites. Okay? Let's keep going. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. Who made a covenant by sacrifice? The nation of Israel. The nation of Israel is referred to as saints. Paul is speaking to the saints that are in Rome, which are what? Israelites in Rome. But this is why I said go to all nations, because if he said not to go to all nations, then we wouldn't be able to get to our people in the midst of all nations. Hence like Rome, hence like Galatia, hence like Thessalonica, hence like America, hence like South America. See? This is why they say go to all nations, okay? Because without admitting to go to all nations, you're limiting the gospel to our people that are in the midst of all nations. But then when we get to the nitty and the gritty, we start isolating these nations, even though we're going to them, and we start identifying nations and who they are. They have a problem with that, okay? Everyone just wants to be a Gentile. Where'd all the nations go? Where'd all the nations go in the Bible? Let's ask Google that. Where are the nations in the Bible today? Where are they? List of nations mentioned in the Bible. 10 biblical places. Modern nations and God's ancient plan. The Bible and history records that Assyrians carried the 10 tribes of Israel. Right, but where are they today? Well, you have Ethiopia still, but when you think about that, why did nations change? Okay, why did nations start getting called black, white? There's a guy who made this up. Why are people called black, white, yellow? Let's see that. Color terminology for race. See, that's a problem. Color terminology for race. Your color doesn't determine your race, all right? Your color doesn't determine your race. But for some odd reason, after a process of time, nations started going from the land being called the land thereafter to a color that they identify with. What's up with that? It says It says, identifying human races in the terms of skin color, at least as one among several psychological characteristics, has been common since antiquity. Such divisions appeared in rabbinical literature and in early modern scholarship, usually dividing humankind into 4 or 5 categories with color-based labels: red, yellow, black, white. Right. Red is Gad, yellow's Moab, black's Judah, and white's Esau. See how they did that? See how they did that? It says, but now, over a process of time, you can be yellow and still be an Israelite. You can be white and still be an Israelite. You can be black and still be an Edomite. And sometimes brown, it was long recognized that the number of the categories is arbitrary and subjective, and different ethnic groups were placed in different categories, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I believe this is the guy, might have been him. There's in particular guy who, it says Francos Bernier doubted the validity of using skin color as a racial characteristic. Good job. Let's see what else. Categorizing racial groups by reference to skin color is common in classic antiquity. For example, it is found in the something. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Noah, especially, look, now they're mentioning Noah. Oh, look, Noah especially blessed Shem and his sons, making them black, but not commonly. So right here, it's saying that Shem and his sons are black, and he gave them a habitable earth. He blessed Ham and his sons, making them black like the raven, and he gave them the inheritance of the coast of the sea. He blessed Japheth and his son, making them entirely white. That's not true. And gave them for an inheritance the desert. That's why they say Esau's Japheth. See how they do that? So they had to acknowledge color in the Bible. And that's because of what? The Renaissance. See? So see how when you start getting to the nitty and gritty, they just like to compile you all up until you start pulling back the pages. This is the problem with Christianity. They don't like speaking about individual nations. All right. Just like this. Genesis 17, right here. It says, Genesis 17:5, it says, neither shall thy name anymore be called Abram, but thy name shall be called Abraham. For a father of many, it didn't say all nations, for a father of many nations have I made thee. Now it calls Abraham the father of many nations. Does that mean every nation on the planet? No, but it means the nations of Israel, because each Israelite tribe is a nation. Let's get this real quick. Isaiah 60, but they don't like that. They don't like hearing about in particular nations. They don't like hearing about what's just for Zion. They don't like hearing about what's just for Moab, what's just for Edom. They want to compile you together all because it says all nations. Isaiah 60:22, it says a little one, right? A tribe, a little one shall become 1,000, and a small one, a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten in his time. See, so the scriptures let us know that one can become a nation. And just like you have one Judah, one Naphtali, one Reuben, one Gad, that one became a nation, and us coming in the kingdom, the 144,000, we will reiterate that process in our kingdom, meaning each Israelite elect man that's a part of the 144,000, each one of those 12,000 men from each tribe will become a nation of his own, and each tribe is a nation. See? So this is what it means when it refers to a father of many nations. It doesn't mean all nations. It means all the nations of the children of Israel, which are now scattered amongst all nations on the earth. And they don't like to talk about specifics. They don't want to talk about specifics when it comes to this topic. All right. But it's very simple. How to be saved, desire of all nations. Now, let me just get one for edification. Let's go to Rev. All right. Just for you to understand. And I always feel like this one is very impactful and very edifying. So right here, starting at verse 4, it's 144,000 from each tribe of the nation of Israel, right? But then when you go down, it speaks about a multitude also, right? Which would make you think, okay, yeah, that's the all nation part. That's what we're talking about. Yes, because what they want to partake in the promises. Let's just be honest. You want to be saved so you can get the promises that you hear that are given to Israel. Even though you'll say all nations, but what do y'all all want? You want what you read that's given to Israel. Because when you read in the Bible, all the blessings and gifts and all these things that sound wonderful, that's only for the nation of Israel. So why would a Christian today want glory? Because the glory that they hear about in the scriptures is dedicated to the nation of Israel. See? So they say, no, all nations are going to get that. Right? Rev 7 and 9. After this, I beheld and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations. See, they're like, yes, all nations. We're the nations. We're all the nations. And kindreds and people and tongues stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Now let's go into this. So it says a multitude, right, that you couldn't number, of all nations, ethnos, all nations, meaning what? A multitude, a company, right, of tribes, right, of tribes. Okay, we get that. So meaning you're going to have people that are going to come from all nations. Okay, and that's fine. And the ones that are going to, it's not going to mean every single person of every nation. It doesn't mean every single person of every nation. It doesn't mean every single person of that nation, but there's people coming from these nations. So let's find out who are these in particular people that are coming from these nations. See, it's getting specific. It says, and kindred. Who are the kindred of these people of these nations? Boom. The kindred of the people of these nations in the New Testament, all the persons descending. See, descending. So you have people in China that descend. You have people from Africa that descend. People from America that descend. People from Europe that descend from one of the 12 sons of the patriarch Jacob. See? So yes, we speak about all nations because you have descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel of the patriarch Jacob in the midst of all nations. That's all it means. This is why it says all nations, because you have descendants of Israel in the midst of all nations. So I just wanted to do that quick lesson. It was just on my spirit. I want to say call law, Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Rakakodash, double honors to my elders and apostles, a great millstone that do well. With that being said, shalom.